I thought I had just ruined my whole life, by getting arrested, and I just thought I'm going to lose my scholarship. I'm going to lose my place at BYU. I've been off a mission a year and I'm in jail. Like, what is going on? Yeah. Lavell tried to lift up the table and throw it over on the guy. Like, he was mad. It's like, he's our family. I was ignorant, right? And so, like you said, information. Like, these guys need the education.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Two Thumbs Up podcast. Grateful to have you with us today. I got my good buddy here, Derik Stevenson. Thanks for coming on the show today, my friend.
Hey, I'd love to come see you for any reason, but if we could talk about the stuff that we're both passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. Truly grateful. It's been, man, I was trying to think when we had you on one other time when we were just getting this thing going a couple years ago. And I'm grateful to have you come back and, see where life's kind of taking you and what you've been up to. And we've got a great, we got college football kicking off, and are both passionate about that. And I just felt like, hey, it's a good time to have Derik back and see how his life is going.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you.
How's how's life going? What have you been up to?
Life's crazy. I'm gonna be getting married in a little while.
Very cool. Tell me her name again. I met her a couple
Lacey.
times. Lacey, yeah.
Yeah.
Love you, Lacey.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got 3 daughters of her own that are 5, 8, and 11, and I've got a daughter that's 16, a daughter that's 18, a daughter that's 21, and a daughter that's 23. So we got 7 girls between us. So, I looking for a second job if you're hiring. Because
we'll see what we can create.
I got 3 kids in college, and really proud of my first 2 going to BYU.
Very cool.
And then we had a real shock with my recent high school grad, and she got accepted to BYU as well, but she liked the University of Utah better.
Yeah,
and
great place too.
It's I checked her into the dorms, helped her get set up, did some school shopping, and so took her to the grocery store, and then I haven't seen her for 2 weeks. Since we dropped her off, she's just having the time of her life, and just loves.
You remember that feeling, that new school, even college, or I both went to BYU, and that new semester starting, that feeling. Yeah. Everybody's coming back to campus, and you got football starting. You got all the. It was just a joyful time.
I remember my parents dropping me off at BYU when I was 18. And, football practice was starting the next day. My parents dropped me off, and they just dropped me off at the curb. And Dad gave me $20.
Yeah.
That's the last dollar I saw from him.
Went somewhere.
It went a long way. But, yeah, I just remember, just going from the top of the food chain, thinking you're a great high school football player, and then all of a sudden you're nothing, and you got to
What did that feel like? Like, no, truly. Like,
I didn't like it because I didn't want to have to start all over. You work and you try and build something, or reputation, or a history, and then, it's kind of gone, when there are 99 other guys who are as good as you or better than you. And it's very apparent, at practice that, you feel really awkward. I did for a year, and had a really hard time my freshman year. I think I left BYU after 1 year to go on a LDS mission, and I think I had like a 1.5 GPA. And when Lavell sent me off on my mission, he's like, when you get back, if you don't hit the books, like, you're not going to be eligible, and you won't last here.
Yeah.
And, that man, he did a lot of things for me in life, but, he gave me some great advice, and, just really helped me get through a hard first year of getting my butt kicked on the football field and failing in the classroom, and then going off on my mission and not knowing, like, when I come back, if everything's going to be okay. But, it all worked out. But, it was really hard to start from scratch again.
Yeah, so it's that moment in life where it's like, oh, you have a couple options there. You dig in and create something, or you just sort of fade away. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was it? What would you say that's in you innately that says, no, I'm gonna soar here. I'm gonna create something here. What do you? I mean, if you were to share that piece of you, what would you say that is?
I don't know. I think, I kind of hit a bottom, at that time, and I think it really strengthened me.
Hitting the bottom.
Yeah. And I've seen it, and you and I have talked about it. I've hit other bottoms in life and really hard times. And those times suck, but, after you work through it and it forces you to be better, more disciplined, get up earlier, work longer hours, hit the weight room extra, go to study hall when you're not required to. And you start doing those things because, I do it because, I don't think I'm scared of very much in life, but, failure, just, I hate it. I'm failing as a person in the classroom, on the football field, and, having those challenges, I think, I owe a lot of, the good things in my life to the hard times that I really went through.
You touch on such an interesting idea. There's this paradox between failure and without failing, which whatever that word is. I'm so grateful for the failures now because of the wisdom I feel like the learning that I experienced, and I agree with you. The fear of failure is a powerful, get my ass up and moving, but it seems to always and then the self-defining, I failed, right? But because of failure, in some magical way, it's propelled things forward. And the wisdom and the learning that happens because of it. So I find it this interesting paradox. Yeah. We avoid it like the plague. Right. And we actually think that it's such a horrible thing to fail.
Yeah.
But in some ways, it's a great gift.
Yeah.
And do you see the paradox? It's like jumbo shrimp.
Yeah.
It actually makes no...
Yeah.
It's like, wait a second here. But due to the failure, due to walking through the shadow...
Yeah,
you emerge somehow, like the phoenix rising from the, It's I don't know. I find those interesting paradoxes. And athletes, and humans in general, moms, dads, athletes, we have the, but in the loss of a conference championship, or in the loss of or an injury, like what I mean, you are a witness to this. What rises from the experience of the loss?
I think the pain and the failure of hitting a bottom in your life propels you up a little bit, but I think the love of succeeding and happiness and being in that place, like you can't let that fear and that pain motivate you forever. At some point, I think that love has to take over, and that love of winning, that love of feeling successful, that love of going out and building great relationships, and that love has to take over, I think, at some point. But the fear and the pain is what kind of got me off of my ass. The times that I've been knocked on it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such an interesting paradox to me.
Yeah.
And the experiences and the growth and how it matriculates sort of into being an amazing dad.
Yeah.
And now in a new relationship and with Lacey and so much amazing. But when we're 20 and you're up against 99 other guys to make a spot, and you're at an academically challenging school.
Yeah.
And
Coach Edwards told me that those 99 guys that are better than you have all walked in those shoes as a freshman, feeling like you're not good enough and that. And, I think whenever you meet somebody that you're like, you have immediate respect for, you look up to them, you think, man, this is a great person. Whenever I feel like that about, someone else, I always find out that they've been through hell at some point in their life, right? Yeah. And it's kind of the connection you can make with people at a real soulful level when, you can share with each other those challenges that have propelled you to, become better.
Yeah. And Coach Edwards is just, you bring him up, and what a beautiful, mentor, man. I'm sure in his life, he'd been through some things, some losses, so to speak. But you always speak so highly of him. I remember even the last time you were on the podcast, you speak so highly of him. And, when someone comes along in life where you have immediately, it's like, oh, I'd love to learn from that person. That's kind of how it was with Coach Edwards, wasn't it?
Yeah. He never coached me out on the field.
Oh.
He never said anything to me other than stop getting in fights or, stuff like that.
Yeah.
The offensive players at BYU just hated me. But, he would call me into his office, once a month and sit me down and ask me about my family, my mom and dad. He would ask me how school's going. He would never bring up football. He was cool because he was the head coach and he would let his 8 coaches do all of the coaching out on the field. But he was after my father. And my father told him when he dropped me off at BYU, he's like, I've taught this young man everything that I know. So he's your problem now, right? And so Lavell, he actually took that to heart, and he's like, and he was my second father for a long time. I got in trouble at BYU a couple of times, and when I was going there, and he was the one that would come and get me out of jail. When
quite literally,
he had to drive 2 hours, 3 hours down to Manti, to the county jail down there. I don't know, San Pete County Jail or something. And
isn't it funny if you've been in jail, you remember the county?
I remember looking out the jailhouse window late at night, and I was crying. I was covered in blood, from what happened, and I was dreading having to pick one person to call, the next morning, and I didn't know who it was going to be. And I remember crying. I thought I had just ruined my whole life, by getting arrested, and I just thought I'm going to lose my scholarship. I'm going to lose my place at BYU. I've been off a mission a year, and I'm in jail. Like, what is going on? Yeah. Who do I call? And I remember that I was praying, and I just felt like, just call Lavell. And I'm like, no way. And just call him. And, I called him first thing in the morning, and it was Sunday morning. He was getting ready for church, and he said, "You're going to be okay. See right there?" I said, "What do you mean stay right there? Where am I going to go? I'm in jail." And he drove down, 2.5, 3 hours on a Sunday morning. He picked me up, and he didn't say a word to me like the whole way home. And we got back to, we went back to the school. We went back to his office, and we went in, and he's like, "All right, you're going to be okay, and we're going to make this right. But, just listen to what I say." And I would do anything he would have told me at that point. And he said, we're gonna call the honor code office together right now, the guys that run the honor code office. And we called them, and then the guy said, okay, I don't know, whoever it was who runs the administration up there, just said, all right, I'll meet you guys there in about 2 hours at my office up on campus. Now there's upper campus at BYU, which lower campus, the athletes, we don't like the management and the authorities, like, because they're always, I don't know.
They are higher. They are literally they're elevated higher.
We have upper campus.
up those stairs, right?
Yeah. And then a couple hours after, Lavell and I were sitting and talking in his office, and we're supposed to go up and meet with the honor code. He's like, all right, you go up there. I said, okay, let's go. And he's like, no, you go. Right? I'm not gonna save you. Like, I was expecting Lavell to go to the president of the school, because, I knew the next day, like, it would probably come out in the media and stuff. And, he told me that I need to tackle this thing, and he'd be there for me, but he's not going to do the hard work. He says, you've made a mistake, and you got to do the hard work, and you're going to be okay, and I'll be here for you, but I'm not going to do it for you. And he didn't pull me any favors, and the honor code office said, we're going to kick you out of school. And I was upset with Lavell for not going with me and helping to
rescue
bend their arm, but a lot of times in life, as an athlete, if you're the star in high school and stuff, you get special treatment from everybody. And it's a curse for athletes, that everybody goes easier on them than, even the professors at BYU. It was well known that, you go and talk to the professor in his office, you make friends with them, you tell him you're going to be missing these days because of trips and stuff. But, the professors would always help the players. They would always help the players because they knew we had a load.
Did you feel like that was a disadvantage now that you look back?
Yes, 100%. And it's hard. It's hard even with your kids. You want to do things for them. But I heard it said, you never do anything for your child that your child can do for his or herself. That's how you help a kid grow up. Don't ever do anything for them if they can do it themselves. So let them do all the things they can do, and then if you have to help them with other stuff. And that's why Lavell was just like, you can do this. And I knew I couldn't do it. And, I got booted out of school. But even then, he's like, and some of the other coaches, the offensive coaches especially, they're like, that guy, he's just a troublemaker. He's just a hothead and those sorts of things. So my defensive coach, Ken Schmidt, and Lavell, in a coaches meeting, I wasn't obviously in the meeting, but one of the guys that was in there said, Lavell stood up, and when the other coaches were saying, just forget about that kid, whatever, Lavell stood up, and the guy told me that Lavell tried to lift up the table and throw it over on the guy, like he was mad. It's like he's our family. Oh, right. And that's what I heard he said about me when I was kicked out of school. I had 240 hours of community service to do, and Lavell said, "Look, you don't have classes, you don't have football." It was the summer, luckily, and he just said, "Go get those 240 hours done, and then you and I can work on talking to BYU, and once you show them that you've done what you've needed to do, and then we'll see if we can get you back in and get you on the team." and he never gave my scholarship away. He just left an empty scholarship. And he would call me every few weeks and just say, hey, how are you doing? Like, you making some progress? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, just keep going. Like, this is going to work out. And when you're 22 years old and, in Utah now by yourself, just, I would get down, but for some reason, whenever I would start to, get depressed about it again, he would call me up, and he treated me like I was the only kid that he had to deal with. He has 99 other, 110 other kids. I don't know how many, but I felt like I was the only guy that he was worried about, that he was right there for me. And it's like, how can you do that for 100 guys? Maybe guys don't have challenges like me, so he doesn't have to deal with all of them.
You're reminding me of a story about the guy on your shirt. And you mentioned the 99.
Oh.
And it's making me emotional.
Wow.
And a man like Lavell Edwards tending to the one.
Mm.
And, when you describe that scenario, that's the image I got, was the master, the wise, the unconditionally loving tends to the one. And the 99, he puts in faith.
Hmm.
And he puts the one in faith, but that's the one that gets to go get tended to right now.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful analogy, what you just described of the master, the shepherd, that for whatever reason, I love that you wore that shirt today, because he's sitting right there on your heart.
He's not looking at me. He's looking at everybody else.
But that's analogy you just described of Coach Edwards, the love he has, and he, and the other, and I don't know, this is really coming up. Maybe it's the shirt. When you described him standing up and wanting to flip over the table and saying this, he's our family. Yeah. I had this image of the gentle, beautiful being on your shirt in the money chain, cleansing, flipping over those tables. This is our.
I didn't
this
even
is
think
the
about
house.
that. I've never thought about it that way.
This is really beautiful.
Thank you for bringing me.
Yeah. So it's like, that's how valuable you are, obviously, to Coach Edwards, to this your entire experience, and for a man like him to honor where you're at. Not do it for you, but walk beside you. Again, look at the analogy.
Mm-hmm.
The footprints in the sand, Yeah. And it's magnificent. And I see these analogies everywhere with what you're describing, and I'm grateful that you're for your experience, because I'm learning a whole heap here today. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been ups and downs of it all. Obviously, we know you got back on the team. Mm-hmm. What was,
Yeah. As soon as I, got all of my legal conditions all taken care of, and, all of that stuff put behind me, and, the incident that happened, the truth eventually came out that, Derik didn't do anything that bad.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of a gray situation, but, so the school softened, and I was able to get back on the team and in school, the next season. I didn't miss any time.
And as, you described your grades before the mission, come home, have this experience a year later. From that point, that, you're behind the jail cell, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And you got liberated,
yeah.
And you went through this whole process. How did, and there was, of course, ups and downs again, I think, through your whole football career, but you early on in the podcast today, we talked about hitting the rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And sitting in a jail cell is pretty rock bottom. And so what's interesting is the paradox there. Without the jail cell, would there have been the expansion of possibilities?
And without the men in my life, you know, and, you know, not everybody can have Lavell Edwards, but, you know, I hope that everybody tries to be like that in their life. You know, I try to do that, and I'll never get to the level of, you know, love and service that, you know, a man like that got to. But, you know, we can all be that, you know, to other people. And, you know, it's funny, my grades were so bad when I was a freshman, and that I had to get, you know, all A's my sophomore year in order to bring up my GPA to make it so I was eligible to play. And I was able to do that, and then my GPA just slowly started going up as I got A's and B's, and you know, then it got to, I think it was my junior year, where I went in to talk to him about, like, I gotta really nail down like my major and my focus, and, you know, think about that. And I said, Coach, I think I want to go and get into the business school at BYU.
The Marriott School of Business.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't remember what everybody said, like the cutoff GPA was to get in and stuff, but my GPA was going up, but because of my freshman year, like it wasn't where kind of the cutoff to get into the management program was. But, you know, guys can get in without hitting that mark if they have other things going for them and stuff. And I went to Coach Edwards. I said, I want to apply to get into the business school and, you know, go into that. And he says, that's awesome. I'm like, go for it. And I was like, yeah, like, can you make any calls?
Yeah.
He's like, hey, look, I'll make calls, but not until you go and try to do the damn thing yourself. And he said that, do the damn thing yourself. If you falter, if you fail, then come talk to me and ask me to make calls for you. Like, don't ask me before you even try. I was like, wow, that stuck with me my whole life. And because I applied, I didn't have the grades. You know, I wrote all the essays and, you know, tried to highlight my extracurricular activities and all that. And
minus a couple.
Sure enough, I got in. Yeah. You know, and I was just blown away. Like, you know, he told me to go do it by myself. And he's told me that before. And, you know, it worked. And, you know, it was hard again, but it's such a blessing that it was so hard. If it was easy, you know, I'd still be, you know, doing stupid shit in my life here at 51, you know, but, you know, I don't know. Soft times and easy times make for soft people. And, you know, we see a lot of that in our world today. Yeah. You know, look at my dad, you know, he's 80, he's down at the VA, you know, getting treatments for all of his skin cancer from all the napalm in Vietnam. And you know, I'm looking at, you know, that man and my father, and, you know, just the hardest life, but he's just the kindest, sweetest, caring person, you know.
It's interesting that generation, their fathers were World War II.
Yeah.
And then they were Vietnam and Korea. My dad, Vietnam and Korea.
Yeah.
And then they raised us. And I'm not saying war is but it catalyzes. It's like, you talk about the lowest of bottoms. You talk about war, going to war, being in war. You get to know who you are real fast and what you stand for. And so that was, and so, you know, war is horrible. But the men and women that have come out of that, in many ways, they've got a lot of demons and a lot of things, but it's fascinating that they know where they stand when it comes to who they are. Yeah. You know, like your dad.
Yeah.
So, interesting stuff. All these paradoxes I see between.
Yeah, again, war, that's pain, that's
Yeah.
hell, that's fear. That's those things that can harden you. Or they can help you really focus in on what you really want out of your life, because I don't want this pain anymore. My father, I told him he needs to tell me his war stories, before he asked me to put him on an iceberg with a sack lunch, and just because he doesn't want to be a bother to anybody. That generation, they don't want anybody, spoon feeding them. And he says, "Put me on an iceberg, Derik." And you know what? I'm scared he's serious. Like he does not. He don't put me. You can't put him in a home. You can't put him in a wheelchair. He's got 2 knee replacements, so both knees are, and he's got fused discs in his back, and he's going in tomorrow to have his back X-rayed again because he can't get up, and I'm scared he's gonna tell me to put him on that iceberg, but if that's what he wants, he deserves to do whatever he wants at this point in life. Whatever you want, Pops.
My dad, when he passed, he was taught, just put me in a pine box. Just put me in a pine box. And so we went to the, you have to do all the arrangements and all the stuff. And literally there was a pine box with rope handles. And there's these ornate ones and all this stuff. Yeah. And I walked over to this one, I'll never forget it. And I was asking that guy, I said, well, tell me about this one. He's like, well, that's this and this and this, and it's designed to do this, and it's very simple. I said, that's perfect, because that's exactly what he always talked about. Todd, just put me in a pine box. I'm like, it reminds me of your dad's story, getting on the iceberg.
They
would
have been friends.
Yeah, they would have been.
They would have been friends.
Yeah. So, great men. Great fathers. And so. You've had a road that you've walked with injury, from football, and lifelong changes due to that. Now, I've talked about the concussion, the things that we do. And, you mentioned something before the show started today that kind of hit me about so many people suffer in silence with long-term post-concussive syndrome, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. And one of our goals, and I've talked about it with Concussion Pros and our foundation we're starting, is the awareness piece. And for people to, like yourself, that have walked this road and are open to sharing their voice about their experience. Because for so long, what have we done with brain injury? Oh, rub some dirt on it and get your butt back out there. But the truth of the matter is somewhat different. I'd like to talk about that a little bit, about owning your voice in this with those experiences and sharing what you've been through with brain injury and injury in general, what you've noticed.
I started playing football when I was 7 down in California where I grew up, and played from 7 till I was 27. I had a 2-year mission, so 18 years of football. And, I got my bell rung, had a little blackout, probably, 3, 4, 5 times a season. You get to the higher levels, play against, Alabama or Notre Dame, and those guys move a lot faster and a lot bigger and heavier than we were at BYU. And, man, they would really rock you when they would hit you. And I just remember, as long as I could follow the doctor's eye or finger with my eye, then they would send me back in. And it's really weird with college football because you need your best players out on the field. And I think back, when I was playing 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it was a lot different. And, even with the drug issues, I don't think the doctors really knew the ramifications for giving out so much medication in order to keep guys on the field, right? Or, we had some situations where, even the doctors were just known as the doctors that could heal these guys. And I think they had some pretty big egos, and, they would try and get the players back. And I don't know if the coaches pressured the medical staff to clear guys, or, I know that goes on, but, there were guys out on the field, and you give somebody an injection in their knee to numb the pain so they can go out and play. It didn't make sense to me at the time, but, it really doesn't make sense now, where, a lot of the guys that had that done, I fortunately didn't have to do all of that, but, they struggle to walk now. They even really great football players at BYU, like Luke Staley, that running back that won the
faster than lightning. I still remember that man.
Like
he could
thick,
run
like 210 pounds. Yeah. And he had health issues all of his years. Probably one of the greatest, top 5, probably greatest athletes to ever play at BYU. But the team needed him so bad that he had bad knees. I don't know. You'll know this, but he had a condition where his joints, there was a lot more space between the bones in his joints and his knees and his elbows, and some sort of condition where his arms would pop out of socket easy.
Yeah, ligament laxity there. Yeah. So I had a really good friend that experienced. Yeah.
And he had some knee surgeries and everything as well, but they were shooting him up to get him out on the field because he was the MVP of the team, and the team needed him. The team was nothing without him, really. And so they would put him out on the field when he shouldn't be. Your body's numb, so all you're doing is hurting yourself worse because you can't feel the pain. So you're just going out there like crazy. And after leaving BYU, finding out that they even falsified some medical records and stuff of his, he ends up, and we've had a few guys from, my time, sue BYU, and, for things like that. We've had some players that have passed away, addicted to drugs since they left BYU and passed away 15 years later or 10 years later. We've had a inordinate number of guys pass away from my defense, from my guys. I don't know. I think out of the starting 11 that I played with, just getting back together with those guys, I think out of those 11, 8 were divorced. And then even those that were divorced, some of them had died. And it's like, man, out of 11 guys. And I went to a linebackers reunion where all the linebackers from all the years at BYU went. And I looked at some of the guys older than me, and it scared me that, dude, is that going to be me? Like the guy can barely talk, because of the brain injuries. Uh-huh. And I think it's really hard for an athlete that's an athlete at a high level that's always performed to take an injury that nobody can see. And it's hard to even know if they're faking or if they're, so every one of us just pretended like, we were fine after concussions because we wanted to play too, and we didn't know the kind of damage that we were doing to our brains. But when I hang out with these older football players and even some of the younger guys, and I can feel it in myself, like something's wrong. Like twice already in this interview, like my brain just stops for a second. And usually it's only for a second or two. And usually it's in a situation where, I don't know why it happens like this, but when you're kind of nervous or elevated, heart rate goes up a little bit. In a situation like being on the radio or doing a podcast, and you're just thinking really hard about what you're going to say, and my brain just stop. And it sucks because I'm halfway through a sentence and I can't remember the point I was trying to make. And it doesn't happen all the time. Some days, it'll be worse than others, but, I can feel something wrong in my brain, but, how do you, I don't know. They say they can't really do anything till you're dead, and then they cut your brain open, and then they can see that you're sick.
Yeah.
So,
and so
the guys are just too tough to admit that they have. It's like admitting, depression or like, I don't know, something that people can't see, and it can't
or
be
like an
proven.
addiction or something. Yeah.
So I don't know. And sometimes I wonder if I, 51, like maybe that just starts to happen to guys, but it feels really different. Like,
and taking all of that you've described, and this is, you can literally sift it down into each individual's life, as a collective, as a what I feel passionate about is information when it comes to brain injury, starting with young athletes. And just getting the information out there and sharing that's like, hey, we love this game. We truly love this game. We love all the things you've learned from the game. It's like, okay, if we're gonna do this game, what are some of as a collective, players, former players, doctors, parents, athletes, how do we move forward? So that's one of my passions is like, how do we move forward with concussion and the long-term effects of it, and still enjoy what we enjoy, but also be very conscious of the risks, as well as, definitely watching for the signs, the symptoms. You described it perfectly. It's like the player just wants to play. And they're great at faking it. When you can't see it on MRI, you can't see it on a CT scan, you can't quantify it. Hey, Derik, go play. So what do you see as far as how to navigate these waters, so to speak? What are some of you've considered this for a long time. How do we navigate these waters?
Well, I was ignorant, right? And so, like you said, information. Like, these guys need the education, and they need it. It's as important as teaching a kid, how to wrap up when they tackle. Like, they also have to know that, football is going to bring a lot of good stuff into your life. Like, I can't explain to people how blessed I was to, have that in my life and all of those experiences. I wouldn't trade it, for anything, to not have the pain that I have now. I wouldn't trade it, but, there's going to be all of this good that comes, from playing a team sport and having the camaraderie with your boys and all of the stuff that you get. But it's going to come with some bad stuff. Well, let's figure out, because we do have the ability and the knowledge now to make the bad stuff less and keep the good stuff, right? Like you were saying, keep all of that. Mm-hmm. Let's take the bad that's going to come. You're not going to get rid of it all. Injuries. Yeah. Football is a wild sport. So, but you can educate, and you can educate coaches, and you can even educate those surgeons. They have surgeons, orthopedic surgeons that are, checking guys for concussions on the sideline, and they need to be educated too.
You're describing something interesting to me, because if someone has a knee injury and they have orthopedic surgery, it gets fixed, or they don't need surgery, what are we going to do with that knee? We're going to rehab that knee, strengthen, stabilize, optimize that knee. So a question just came to my mind. There are things that we can do with athletes where they're literally doing their brain exercises, whether they've had a concussion or not. They're constantly rehabbing their brain. It creates pliability with the brain, neuroelasticity. There's specific supplementations that we can reduce the inflammatory load on the body, like magnesium. So if I would love to see the day where we are exercising the brain like we're exercising a muscle. Like we're gonna squat. We're gonna have strong legs. We're gonna have a strong back. We're gonna have a strong neck. We're gonna be strong musculoskeletally. But to literally take athletes, no matter soccer players, all athletes, and all humans, how about that? Where we are doing daily brain exercises, whether we've had an injury or not, and especially if we've had an injury. And now we're incorporating those brain exercises, those brain training, that brain rehab, whatever you want to call it, into their program, their strength and conditioning program. And we're supplementing with high-quality supplementation, specific like magnesium 3 and 8, which passes the blood-brain barrier, reduces the glutamate transmission in an inflamed brain, works phenomenal. But these are things I dream about. Like rehabbing a shoulder, we can do that. Yeah. We can see it. We see the range of motion. We see the functionality. But how beautiful would it be, Derik, to start instituting rehab programs, strength and training programs for the human brain, pre and post injury, and to optimize the outcomes. I just get goosebumps about that. That's what I really love to see happening, because we would get a result. We would get a positive result with long-term. I would love to see long-term outcomes, because I know that if, when you got your bell rung, the numbers of times you did, because that's what we used to call it. I actually want that term to go away because it's crap.
What's the term? What's the new term then?
How about, been using that we'll make something up.
Yeah.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, do you see all the possibilities here? I get super giddy about it, because I
think you should be, because the ignorance level out there, like even with, I look into this stuff. I talk with guys about this stuff. We've all, tried to do different things but we don't, like, we were always told, like, your brain doesn't regenerate like other parts of your body, right?
It's crazy, huh? It's like,
but,
it's not true.
Really?
It's not true.
What?
Our brains are so elastic and pliable. You put it, now, when there's an injury, liken it like this. Liken it like scar tissue in a shoulder. Once there's an injury of scar tissue in a shoulder, well, you lose your range of motion and your functionality. Well, you can do some things with that to optimize that. The same thing applies to the brain. Neuroplastically, the brain will regenerate. What do we have to do? We create new through exercise, through proprioception and ocular motor training, speech cognition. We retrain the brain to sort of remap itself around the injured area. And so that's what we do with concussion pros.
Yeah.
And it's something that I would love as part of every strength and conditioning program now. We have a brain elasticity training. They're doing their, like, literally simple little things that would pre and post injury. And I actually would dare to say that by doing this training, and someone does get hit with a potential concussion, their brain will recover quicker, because it's already elastic, it's already pliable. We talk about elasticity of the hamstring. Well, of course you want elastic hamstrings.
Yeah.
They're going to tear one up. Well, we want elasticity of our brains too. Yeah. Literally flexibility, pliability, neuroplastically, where the brain says, yeah, I can remap this way because I'm used to doing this brain game, whatever it might be. I find it fascinating, and I really feel like, that's one of our missions with the foundation. We call it the Concussion Recovery Foundation, is to start implementing these things even at a young age. What happened to the days when there was PE class in grade school?
Right.
Like, well, we had PE class.
Yeah.
We're doing things. We're playing dodgeball, and we're running. We're doing track, and we're doing these things. It's like, let's get our kids early on doing brain elasticity games, exercises.
Man,
I don't know.
We're so close to the issue as football players,
yes,
but we're still ignorant. Like, and I don't know, football players like to exercise their body because they're
physical,
arrogant, and they're
yeah. Thank you for your
honesty. They think they look good, and they work out their biceps. I don't know, trying to get them to work out their brains. Like, there has to be some education. You can't see the improvement. You can probably feel it, but I just think you're on to something because there's something missing.
There is something.
I'm close to all of the football programs in the state, and they're a lot more aware of concussions and stuff. But man, exercising your brain like you're exercising the rest of your body. When your brain's the most important part about your body, should be the first thing you want to exercise.
And your nervous system, your central nervous system, which is your brain, your spinal cord, the meninges, literally the nerves that exit our spinal cord. Those, if you want a strong body, if you want musculoskeletally to be strong, foundationally, muscle function is due to a nerve firing. Foundationally, it's the foundation upon which our entire system is built.
Right,
is neuronal, and why wouldn't we foundationally want to be as flexible, pliable, and strong as we possibly can at the foundation with our nervous system as a whole?
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm going with this? It's like that's if we talk about fundamentals. You talk about fundamentals of football.
Yeah.
You talk about body position, how to tackle, how to line up, how to the fundamentals of tackling, the fundamentals of blocking, the fundamentals of throwing a pass, or all of those. Fundamentally, the nervous system is the foundation upon which the rest of the body performs. And so it stands to reason that if we have that mindset, we talk to people all the time. It's like, let's think nervous system first. In an injury situation, let's think nervous system first. Because of the nervous system, what will recover faster? The muscle system. We'll have greater blood flow. We'll get greater cell division. We'll increase range of motion quicker. Those are all neurological events.
Yeah, all the benefits.
So it's phenomenal.
Implementing something like that.
I love it.
I'm getting goosebumps too.
So many cool things, huh, Derek? Yeah.
Well, I just remember when I left football, my last meeting with, the coaches and the players, I was actually over in Europe playing for the team in Amsterdam. The NFL used to have a minor league.
I remember that. Yeah.
So they had, I got fired by the Miami Dolphins. Jimmy Johnson told me, dude, you suck. He didn't say I sucked. He said, you are not good enough to play on this football team. I was like, thanks, coach. And he said, look, we just have to be really clear when we let somebody go that it's for performance reasons and not because you're injured. If you're on they can't cut you if you're on the injured reserve list. Just what they worked out with the union and stuff. They just can't cut people that are hurt and can't perform. You can't cut somebody. So, Jimmy Johnson had to tell me, like, you're no good. Because I had injuries and I was, missing a little time and I couldn't quite play as hard as, but he needed me to know that it was because I was not good enough.
Which may or may not been the truth, I get it.
It was the truth. Hey,
at that point in time,
those guys in the NFL,
meaning that point in time, you were not able to perform. If you were optimized, could have been a different story.
I don't think so.
Thank you for your honesty. I love it.
I was a decent college player. I had things that I do really well, but I wasn't, I was almost like this size playing linebacker. I was a little bit thicker and heavier, but I wasn't, 265 with 4% body fat, running a 4.3. I just finally got to a place where I was like, wow, like I felt like I was a freshman at BYU again, but I felt like I was going to just stay there because these guys are so good. You know, take the best player from every college team in the country, you put them on an NFL team, and I was kind of glad that I had reached a point where, you know, I could go do something else in life.
Good.
With all the injuries and, you know, I even with all my concussions and when the NFL Europe sent us all back, everybody came from, because they did it the league over there off season, so you know you could play over there and then you could go try out for an NFL team again. And the doctor at the Amsterdam Admirals, after my 5th concussion in 6 games or something, he's just like, you know, the brain can only get worse. You know, you get concussions and you start to have memory issues and all of these symptoms. He says brains don't heal like the rest of the body. And he advised me, like, your brain is going to be in trouble. Well, if you keep playing this game.
And I love that.
I had
that he's that honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had 2 classes left at BYU to get my degree, and I think, man, I'm just killing my brain all the time, and I need to go back to school and finish up and finally get my degree. And so I was like, yeah, you know, it's a good time. And I was hurting, you know, my body was hurting, and you know, I didn't even think that much about the brain stuff compared to how much pain my body was in. But
which do you see now? That could be a neural. You have inflamed nerve tissue from injury. Do you see how you can have peripheral whole body pain?
Yeah,
you see. I mean, you see the correlation there.
Yeah,
yeah.
And you know, my worst injuries, like you were talking about the nervous system, my worst injuries were, you know, when you hit somebody with your face or your head, and it pushes it back, and your spine just pinches right here.
Stingers.
And your whole arm would just be in flames. And you know, I would get a bunch of those. Once you get those, it's kind of like a concussion. I guess you get one, and the next one comes easier with not that much impact as the one before, and then it can come easier. And
those are kind of what I would call a peripheral nerve or a brachial plexus concussion. Literally, you can have a concussion of a peripheral nerve. And there, you mentioned it perfectly. Once you've had it, you get it again. Well, it's easier to, that nerve, that whole group of nerves, the brachial plexus, can get compressed. And it's like having that contusion over and over again.
Yeah, and I lie in bed at night now, and I can feel that nerve, and it's still inflamed, you know.
Yeah,
all the time. And yeah, I don't know.
Well, brother, I love you.
I love you too, man.
Thanks for coming on this deal and doing this. I'm super grateful.
You did something for me that I've always remembered. You helped me with those couple of days when I was doing those sessions and taking those classes, and you know, just I remember seeing you there. I didn't know you were going to be there. I just went to do those classes and those courses, and seeing you there, and then, you know, even having you there right there by my side when you kind of go through some hard stuff in that thing. I don't know. I just really appreciate the men in my life that step up and, you know, have even tried to helped a little bit, helped a lot. But I want to thank you, man, for being the guy that you are and the example that you are to me. So yeah, and I love the work that you're doing, and I'd love to be involved in any way that I can help, because the word needs to get out. Like, you know, we have so many guys that are, and a lot of them now, a lot of the guys that I stay in contact with, they struggle with a lot of things, you know, depression, alcoholism, you know, drug addiction, you know, and a lot of it comes from just playing that damn sport and, you know, knocking your head, I don't know, 50 times in a game that your head just gets rocked. And, a lot of those guys are really struggling with a lot of things. And the guys at BYU, I think when they leave, they struggle worse than the other schools that I kind of work with and help. And they, at BYU, it's a little harder to just be so open and honest about taking pills or, having issues with depression and those sorts of things. The culture down there can make it hard. I'm sure it's hard everywhere else, but I remember feeling like, I got this bad stinger playing at Alabama, and I get on the plane and, it's just burning, and the doctors just gave me, a handful of pills, and they said, hey, come see us in the morning. You go sleep on the plane, 5-hour flight back. And I remember they gave me these pills, and I had never taken drugs in my life at that point. I hadn't never had a beer and never smoked weed, but I got on this plane and I'm in so much pain, and I'm lying on the middle row of 5 seats. I kicked some rookies out of the back row, and I laid down. I was in so much pain. I remember feeling like I was going to cry. And everybody watching the podcast thinks I probably cry all the time. Cry easy.
Crying's the most beautiful thing. Crying's one of the most beautiful things a man can do if it's authentic.
Yeah. Not when I'm in pain.
Yeah.
I'm looking up at I just remember saying, God, it hurts so bad. And it told me, take 2 of these and 2 of these, and then 4 hours later, take 2 of these. And I just, threw them in my mouth and laid down. And I remember 15 minutes later, I'm still looking up at the ceiling of the plane, and we'd taken off. And I remember thinking, wow, why have I never done drugs? These pain pills and muscle relaxers. Just, they made the physical pain go away. But, I started taking the pills for the pain for the next few weeks, and I realized, man, these pills take away the worry and the stress and worrying about grades and stuff. And so the pills, helping you feel better with your pain physically is one thing, but you get addicted to the feeling of having that anxiety go away, or feeling good, and it's just immediate. Pop these pills. And I was a senior at BYU. I was turned missionary. I got married in the Mormon temple. I was starting a family, and I started taking drugs for the pain. And then you stop playing football, and you're still used to taking those pills, and you're still in pain, and so you just make up excuses to just keep taking them. And then you start looking for other doctors, and the doctors in Utah County, they'll give a BYU football player whatever they want. You come in and talk to them, tell them what you need, and so a lot of us guys after we kept taking the drugs supposedly for the physical pain, but everybody's just taking them and it's hard in the culture to reach out and get help. Harder than it is.
Even the very idea that you could even admit that you have a potential problem now.
Well, and that was the problem, is I wanted to get help halfway through that season, my senior year, but I was, traumatized by the honor code.
Right.
A couple years ago. And I'm like, if I go and tell them I have a drug issue, they're going to kick me out. I'm halfway through my senior year, we're having a great year. I'd like to try out for the NFL. I go and admit that I have a problem, that kick you out for drug abuse. And that's actually something that I've worked with BYU and the Honor Code office with to change, where, if somebody comes in and admits hey, I need help with something, then you got a free pass. If you're in a place where
when you're that
change.
Honest.
Yeah.
If you're
you're in a place where you're that honest, or you, for whatever reason, you just want to get better, and reaching out to a place like the Honor Code.
That's a big change.
Yeah.
That's a big change.
And so, they give I don't know what the word is. What is it when they,
some grace?
Well, they'll just give you some grace and give you a free pass. And,
get you some assistance.
Yeah, give you some help. That's what a school like BYU and the Mormon Church should be doing. Let's help these guys that come to us and say, hey, I got a problem.
I love that.
I need help.
That's a new paradigm.
Yeah.
That's a whole new way of doing it.
And so there are things like that changing down there to help things be a little bit better. But I think you could bring to, a program like that or anybody else that needs this help. Like, it's just, it'll be so valuable if you could educate, as many people as you can about this issue. Cause it's a real deal.
Yeah, it's our goal. It's what we love with the Concussion Recovery Foundation and the things we're looking at doing. I'm very hopeful that we can, make a dent in this entire thing and learn as we go. Like, there's this song I love. It's called "Grow as We Go," and like, let's just grow as we go. We'll figure this thing out as it unfolds. And I'm grateful that people to share your story, to own your voice, to be vulnerable, to share your experience is invaluable, and in so doing creates the opportunity for others to potentially share their experience, and together we can conquer this thing and do something different. Cool. But Derik, thanks for coming on the Two Thumbs Up podcast.
Thanks.
Truly grateful. Love you, brother.
Anytime.
And we'll see. We got lots of things in the works, and we'll see where we go. But folks, thanks for tuning in. Again, we're sponsored by the Concussion Pros, Alpine Integrated Health, and Within Consulting. We are opening a new foundation, starting a new foundation. It's called the Concussion Recovery Foundation. And we're grateful for you, and we will see you down the road.
Go Cougs!
Go Cougs!